Hey guys, it's Malika Dawson. Welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited for today's video.
1, 2, 3.
Hey guys, it's Malika Dawson. Welcome back to my channel. Okay, we're gonna hop straight into today's video. Really excited because I'm gonna be doing a Q&A. I asked you guys on Instagram to ask me questions. I'm gonna be answering about 10 of them, 10 of my favorite questions. We're gonna start off with questions about me, and then we're gonna move into the ministry type questions. Okay, so let's get started. The first one is this. I've gotten this question a lot, and it is, what college do you plan on going to? Because I do talk a lot on my channel how I am officially graduated from high school and kind of what my next couple steps are. So if you guys know me personally, so I decided to go to the Ramp School of Ministry, and I'm so pumped. But the Lord did actually kind of instruct me to stay in my hometown. So I'm staying in Texas, and I'm going to be doing online, which I'll be visiting a whole lot down there. I'm already going twice this summer, so I'm super excited that I get to build a relationship with them while also staying in my hometown, continuing the move and things like that. So that is where I'm going to college. Okay, next question is, what is your go-to coffee order? If you guys know me personally, I don't drink coffee. Like, I just can't. Like, I just don't like it very much at all. And so my friends go to like Starbucks and Dunkin', and every time we go, I will just never really drink anything from there. What I do like is Alani's right here. This is my favorite one, the Hawaiian one. But that's like, I'll drink Alani's for like energy, but other than that, I really don't like coffee. Like, I just don't like the taste of it. Okay, what is my favorite high school memory? Okay, so there's so many that I love, and I could talk about them like all day, but one of my like favorite memories was definitely during football season. If you guys follow me on Instagram, I'm sure that you know that I edit the majority of, like, I edited a lot of the hype videos and things like that for the football team. So I would go on the sidelines and like film on Friday nights. And so just those kind of memories of just like the joys of whenever we'd get a touchdown, or, you know, whenever I would make like a really good video for game days and things like that. Like, Friday game days are unlike anything else in high school. Like, they're so fun and super hype. So I probably like Friday nights, football games, and during the school, like, we have pep rallies and things like that. I'm adding on to that question as I'm editing it. There was a moment that I really loved from my favorite high school memory, and there was one of our school dances like throughout the year, and me and some other people like skipped the school dance, and we had like an all-night prayer meeting, and it was so fun because there was this moment where I was just laying on the floor, and we had worship music playing in the sanctuary at the church, and I was laying on the floor, and I just like looked around the room, and I was like, we want God so much. Like, we want to encounter God so much that we would rather be here in his presence than at, you know, just another school function. All of the year, like, just saying yes to God, yes to God. And just because I was obedient, I watched him move in my high school and do certain things in my high school that I never could have dreamed were possible. But because I said yes, God used me. Every single time that the Lord asked me to go speak to someone or do something or go step out for him, and every time he said yes, people were impacted, people were changed. And so just little things like that was really powerful. And the other last high school memory is there was like a month span where I'll do a whole video about this later, but the Lord actually, he asked me to start reading my Bible in class. Like, he just said, I want you to have your daily time with me, but I want you to do it in first period. And so I started reading my Bible in class, and I really didn't understand why he wanted me to do that. And then a month later, I walked around school, and there were people all over the school like bringing their Bibles, and we started this thing around my whole city where you would bring your Bible and read it, and people began to come to me and ask, what are you reading? What are you learning? And things like that. And so it wasn't just at my school, it was from schools all around my city, and it was like all of my friend group, we just started reading our Bibles, and we even started like groups within our school where we would get together and read our Bibles every period possible. And it was like we would all meet up in a certain classroom, and if we had free time to go read our Bibles and stuff like that. So the little things that the Lord like asked me to do, and because I was obedient, people were changed by that, or people were affected by that leaving that kind of memory at my high school was so far more important than, you know, being the most popular girl or things like that. So just things like, one of the questions was just big gospel fan. I don't really know what that means, but I'm assuming it's talking about the Gospels and the Bible. And yes, hot take, my favorite gospel out of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John is definitely Matthew. Whenever people like ask me where they should start reading their Bible, I always say Matthew. A lot of people say John, and the reason I say Matthew is because there's a lot of teaching on what it means to be a disciple of the Lord, and then also how Jesus moved and did things. So Matthew's definitely my favorite. Like, I always go back and like read through it. It's so powerful, and that's my favorite gospel. Okay, we're gonna move into more ministry questions because the majority of the questions were ministry questions. So we're just gonna blow through these really quick. Okay, the first one was this: how do you study and spend time with the Lord? Okay, what I do is whenever I read my Bible, like I'll have a time where I sit down and I solely am just reading the Bible and spending time with the Lord, but then I also have a time where I'm not reading the Bible, I'm not on my phone, I'm not listening to a message, I'm just sitting in God's presence. And I think that that's something that a lot of people need, is time where you're not directly doing anything. Mine is waiting on the Lord, because waiting on the Lord is not just reading your Bible, it's giving him room to speak, it's giving him opportunity to speak. So I do take at least 1 or 2 hours out of the week that I solely dedicate to sit before the Lord, let him speak to me. Like, all of the messages I preach are all inspired by things that anyways, all the messages I speak are not just off the top of my head. It's not just something that I'm reading my Bible. It's also like what the Lord is directly telling me to speak on. Like, I always wait on the Lord, especially whenever I preach in the move, because the move was solely a command from the Lord, from something that he wanted me to start. So I always want to preach exactly what he wants to be said, whatever he feels like is timely for like my city, the people that are listening, people that are hearing and receiving from. So I completely just base all my messages off of what the Lord is speaking to me. I never really come up with them just off the top of my head or things like that. So
another thing I wanted to throw in there is that I do listen to tons of podcast worship messages, things like that. And because I want to be constantly poured into by people that I trust and things like that. But I also am very careful that I'm never regurgitating what another pastor or prophet or apostle is saying whenever I preach. Because yes, you know, it's not wrong to quote people. I do quote certain people, but I also never want to preach someone else's message. And I have to be very careful that I'm always hearing from the Lord directly what he wants me to speak. So whenever I spend time with the Lord, there is a time when I read my Bible every day, but there's also long periods of time, an hour or two, that I try to do this at least once daily. I set aside like a solid hour that I just sit in the presence of God and let him speak to me about, you know, what he wants in my personal life done, what he wants in my YouTube videos. Like almost all of my YouTube videos are inspired by something that the Lord told me. All of my sit down preaching, teaching type videos are all from the Lord. So how I spend time with the Lord, because I really never answered that question, sorry. But quickly, how I spend time with the Lord is this. I go normally in the sanctuary. I don't really ever try to do it in my room, because if I do it in my room, I can easily get distracted by just what laundry needs to be done, things like that. So I try to do it whenever I'm at work, which I work at the church. So I try to go in the sanctuary, I turn on something over the speakers, and I don't put my phone away. I only get my prophetic journal, which is right here next to me, and I grab that journal and I grab a pen, and then I just simply walk around, I pray, and then I just have conversation with the Lord, with not reading my Bible, not listening to just the worship music, but just listening to the Lord. Sometimes I don't even turn on worship music. And I just like to sit and just hear from him and hear from your Father. And I think that that's something that everyone needs to do, because it's not hard to hear from God. I can do a whole video about this. I'll go more in depth and explain a little bit later. Comment down below if you guys want a full video on this. But that's kind of, you know, how I spend time with the Lord.
Is how do you stay on fire for God? This is really important, because I feel like this is something that a lot of teenagers kind of ask whenever people like come and they'll ask me questions. They say, how have you stayed on fire for so long as a teenager? Because it is really hard. I think you just like make a decision, like, I'm not quitting, I'm not slowing down. And whenever you rely on the Lord for everything, like my life is completely dependent on the Lord. Like whenever I was making my college decision, I was like, I don't want to make it out of what I want to do, I want to make it out of what you want. So I'm putting myself in a position to be obedient. Like I'm putting everything dependent on him.
Okay, this is quickly becoming a second part to the interview I did, because I filmed this like 2 weeks ago, so I'm adding on to my questions now. But how do I stay on fire for the Lord? Lots of things, lots of advice I can give you, but number one is to get rid of anything that pulls you away from the Lord. What that can look like is deleting Instagram for a little bit, completely deleting Snapchat, which I fully suggest. Anything that pulls your heart's affections towards something else. It could be a relationship, it could be friends. Anything that pulls you away from God, get rid of it. And that's kind of in a way like fasting, but it's also in the Bible, it talks about that your flesh and your spirit are constantly at war, meaning that your flesh desires things of this world, but your spirit desires God. And so whatever you feed the most is what will have control over your life. It talks about that in the Bible. And so it's really simple. You just start beginning to feed your spirit more than your flesh and saying no to your flesh. So that means instead of going to sleep watching Netflix for 3 hours, spend time in the Word. Go to sleep sleeping with worship music. It's simple little decisions like that that gets your spirit man built up. And then once your spirit man is more built, it keeps on desiring more and more of God. And so one thing I really do advise is don't just read your Bible, also spend time talking in conversation to the Lord. Because if you just read your Bible, you're just reading stories. But once you know God as a father, a friend, and just so many other things, your comforter, your shepherd, if you know him as all of those things, then it becomes more of a relationship more than I'm reading about someone. And that's how you stay on fire. Another thing is get around good friends. If you don't have good friends, the number one thing you can do is be the friend that you want to have. Meaning, like, whenever I got really, really on fire for the Lord, I didn't have a lot of friends. Like, I lost almost all of my friends, to be completely honest. I'll share more about that in another video. But what you do is start posting on social media. Here's what I'm reading in my Bible, and I promise you the right people will come along. If you live out loud for the Lord and then build yourself in private, build this relationship with the Lord, not just for social media to see, but for you and God. Like, you build that relationship between the two of you, then you stay on fire because you begin to grow hungry for him. Your desire for God begins to grow. And then it's like the more you spend time with him, the more and more and more you want to get to know him. So that's how I've stayed on fire.
Okay, how do I stop cussing? That's a good question, because that's something that a lot of teenagers just do, like, off the top of their head. Okay, this is completely random, but me and my sister just talked about this. So we saw this quote from this, like, philosopher, I believe, and I don't really follow a bunch of philosophers or whatever, but there was this one person, and he was saying that cussing is is what the brain does whenever he doesn't have anything intelligent to say. He just falls back into using vulgar language because he's not intelligent enough to come up with a sentence to say. And that kind of like was crazy to like think about, because I was like, that's literally so true. Anyways, how do you stop cussing? I would, first of all, it's training yourself, saying don't say that, have something else you say. Listening to worship music. If you are in a habit of just cussing like back and forth like that, listen to worship music, because then you can get those songs that are like stuck in your head, because worship songs to me are like a living prayer. And so if you can get those songs stuck in your head and then they just naturally start flowing out, you know, that is how your brain is like teaching you to sing something else that is not worldly, that's godly. You know, you're singing praises and you're saying praises all the time. So instead you're listening to worship and you're getting that out of your head. Really, all of these are just feeding your spirit, starving your flesh. That's the simplest answer to everything. This is a good question. How can I be fluent in the word and understand when I'm reading the Bible better? Okay, this is so true, because I was like raised in church, and so I'd heard every Bible story like known to man, because anytime the church doors were open, like my parents have always been in ministry, anytime the church doors were open, we were there. So I feel like I knew every story in the Bible. Well, whenever I got older, and it was like my personal relationship with God, it wasn't just because my parents were making me go to church. Not that they ever had to make me go to church, but like there would be people that would like be preaching on a story and you were like, oh, I've never heard of that story, I want to know. And you know, whenever you're like in a Bible study and people are talking about, well, I studied this out in Philippians and it was so powerful because Paul and they're talking about that, and then you're like, oh, I wish I knew what was going on. You know, there's that like, you want to know what's going on. I take sections of the Bible, like I'll take 3 chapters, like Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, and I'll say, okay, I'm gonna read all of these. And then it's so much easier because I get like in a routine where I'm like, I gotta finish all 3 of these. Or just recently I did 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, and I'm about to start 1 Kings. Right now I'm doing like Acts and Romans as well too. So what I do is I I personally highlight my Bible like a lot, and I have sticky notes. I do a lot of colors. I do a lot of journaling along with it because it helps me understand it more, and it helps me like go back whenever like we're in a Bible study. I can go back and like read my notes of what I got from that moment, how I spiritually grew in that moment. And so that's how I kind of like get in a habit of reading the word better, because I see things visually, like, so whenever there's color, I understand it more. And then also how to understand what you're reading. That's so true. Okay, so what I do, I'll just show you really quick. On my phone, I have the Bible app right here. I don't know if you can tell what is going on. There's the Bible app. And if it is in the New Testament, I go to the Passion Translation, which is like right here. And my Bible is ESV. Also, if you guys want to know what Bible to get, I actually have my Bibles linked in the description box down below. Anyways, so right here, my nails look so bad. Okay, right here, if you click on this, like, it kind of gives you a deeper understanding of like what's going on, things like that. That's how I kind of understand more, but also I pray about it. Like, God, I don't understand what's going on here. How can you convey this message to me a little bit better? So whenever I'm reading something, I'll like let the Lord speak to me over what he wants me to spiritually grow on, what he wants me to pick up in that. Like, there could be a story and I say, okay, God, I read the story, I get the story, but I know that there's a deeper meaning that you want me to understand. Reveal it to me. And then he's so kind. Whenever you ask, he'll answer. And so if you just, instead of just trying to read your Bible, try to understand it, try to study it, because I truly believe that there's a difference between just reading your Bible. Like, you can just read it and be like, okay, cool. Or you can study it, understand it, learn it, you know, and that should significantly take a lot longer than just reading your Bible. Another question is, how do you minister? First of all, I love to preach. That's like a calling that I feel like the Lord has really put on me, and he also has gifted me a good ability to speak. So I'm really, really thankful that I like to preach. Okay, so the Lord, we really have a good time whenever he's teaching me things in the Bible and just teaching me stories for me to spiritually grow through the message. So whenever I preach, I like to just convey what the Lord's been showing me, what he taught me, things like that. So that's first of all how I like to minister. Second of all, I love praying for people, because the Lord also speaks to me. It is what we call prophetically. Like, the Lord will tell me things to tell other people, like a word for them. So that's another way that I minister, is whenever I'm praying over you, I could be just like praying, and then the Lord starts speaking to me about you. And so I always like to encourage people, build them up, and just kind of let them know what's on God's heart for them. Okay, so I hope that answered your question. That's kind of how I minister. Anyways, okay, so I hope this kind of answered a lot of you guys' questions. I really enjoyed doing this video. I will be doing more in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys so much. I'll see you guys later. Bye.